Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're breaking down our picks for the top 5 and one worst Artificer Cantrips.
Yeah. Artificers are a weird little class. They're kind of like 4 classes because they're specialties, they're subclasses. Really just take them all over the place, different directions. Their core class is honestly kind of like, I want to say like it doesn't have anything, but it's glorified magic item creation. And then you've got like the actual, like the artillerist blows things up and it's got a decent spell selection and does a bunch of bonus action attack stuff. You got the armorer who's just like, I have a gigantic stack of AC. Look at me go. I'm an Iron Man. You got a battlesmith, which has got a giant pet badger that's made of metal that makes you invincible. And then you have alchemist. We don't talk about alchemist. So then you're like, with these 3 real specialties and 1 pretend one, what do you do with spells? How do you supplement this? And unlike most of the other half-casters, artificers get cantrips. So yeah, you got a little bit of flexibility, you got a little bit of neat options. It's not always apparent what's like good here, but there are some real considerations that you're gonna make depending on what specialty you go. I really wish that was a first level decision that you got to make, but instead it's a third, so you can, like, you know, if you're waffling around trying to figure out what to do and don't necessarily want to commit to anything early on, you might want to change your cantrips as you go. But, you know, we'll talk about that as we go through the spells, I think.
All right. As usual, my caveat is that Sam picks his spells in order, best to worst. I just picked the top 5 that I like best. Any caveats for artificers aside from what you just said? All right, 2 cantrips.
That's a very small
an
number.
Important consideration. Yes.
Yeah. It really makes it. Normally, I like recommending stuff like prestidigitation and the cosmetic cantrips that give you cute little flavor. It's a really hard to justify those, especially because magical tankering is basically that. So you're gonna probably want to take 2 good cantrips that you can consistently use, and there are 2 really good cantrips you can consistently use. So yeah, that my caveat is you have to weigh these a little bit higher because you get less of them.
All right. Why don't you lead the way?
All right, we'll go top to bottom, worst to best. My worst, I mean my number 5. I think Create Bonfire is a real consideration for some artificers. It's a place to put your concentration whenever you don't have first level spell slots that are like gonna give you big things to concentrate on. I think you're gonna often find easy play patterns where you set in a Create Bonfire, creature takes some damage, especially on levels 1, 2, and then you can consistently get that damage reset. You can move it around as you need to. It creates a little blockade if enemies are going through a little channel, and also you can attack with your crossbow. You can do other artificer base level stuff that's gonna feel pretty fine to have your damage cantrip give you a little bit extra in the early game. That'll be entirely reasonable.
Yeah, that did not make my list. There are so many damage options on this list. So I really had to think about which one in particular I was going to use. Actually, I think I went with more than one, but one I did choose was Thorn Whip.
It's my number 4.
Oh, is it? All right. Yeah. I picked that because I thought, all right, normally I think Thorn Whip, like, it's pretty cool, but I don't know how often I want to be pulling an enemy toward me. But if I'm an artificer and I've got a pretty decent armor class, then yeah, maybe I do want to get them up in my face.
If we look at like battlesmith and armorer, both those do want to engage, and having a tool that is like a yoink, you come to me, is pretty handy, pretty neat. I like that it is a little bit of damage, but also engages with the world. A thing to consider when you're looking at the damage counters for artificer, I think things like firebolt are a lot worse than they are in wizards because your weapon proficiencies are actually fine. You like magic weapons. You're pretty decent at using things like crossbows and short bows and stuff. You're going to often have a high dex on these characters. So your base weapon attack is going to be normally a higher damage floor than the other damaging cantrips, especially in the early tier when you want to be using cantrips. You do get extra attack on some of these subclasses, so you want to be making attack rolls with this class. That makes me a lot more inclined to take damage cantrips that I can in some environments get more out of than I can get out of the attack roll, which is why I like Thorn Whip and Create Bonfire quite a bit. Because both those can do more than what they say on paper if you can, finagle a specific circumstance around. If you got both of them, which you probably shouldn't, because you really don't need more than 1 damage cantrip, you could Create Bonfire and pull something into it. That's kind of cute. Yeah. But Thorn Whip, great high utility, pull people off banisters, pull them into cliffs, pull them into walls of fire that other people make. It's a fine little cantrip.
Or in a pinch, you attack your friend and pull them out, disengage.
Yeah. In a pinch.
In a pinch, yes.
All right, that's your pick and my number 4. My next one is kind of, I don't know if this is right or not. I'm including Green Flame Blade here. You could substitute it with Blooming Blade. I think both those are about the same. The thing is, if you want to play a character that is attacking things and you want that attack to be slightly better, this is slightly better. And that's where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be playing an armorer, if I'm going to be playing a battlesmith and I want to engage in melee combat, this is a really easy tool to have at my disposal to let me get a little bit better version of that at first level. That being said, once you get extra attack, you're going to stop using it entirely. So, you know, you're going to weigh, like, if you want this for the first few levels, switch it out whenever you get to that tier because you're going to stop using it. But up until that point, why not? An extra little damage bounce to something nearby is a meaningful upside if you're looking for a way to be a reasonable melee combatant.
All right. Yeah, that also made my list.
Nice.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the extra attack, but yeah, I'm just thinking green flame blade, cool.
Yeah.
More damage.
Sure, why not? It jumps to something else, does a little bit extra damage, a little bit extra damage for a cantrip. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and I'm like thinking, you know, other classes that get this typically don't want to be in people's faces, you know, attacking them, but that's not necessarily the case for an artificer.
Yeah, I think if you're out there trying to construct pick your 2 cantrips as an artificer, I would not take more than one of any of the ones we've talked about so far. I would take probably just one of those, and that's going to be your damaging cantrip. But I do think you're going to want a utility cantrip as well, which are my top 2 picks. I'm assuming, Bob, you've got some utility cantrips over there on your own, right? Or did you just pick Firebolt?
No. I wanted to try and limit myself as best I could to one damaging cantrip. But I picked Thorn Whip, and I guess Green Flame Blade counts. But no, the rest of them are utility.
Sick. What do you got?
I went with Mage Hand.
That's my number 1.
Number 1, yeah. Well, it's Mage Hand.
Obvious. It's gross. Yeah. It's telekinesis. What's not to love? You can
Yeah.
manipulate objects. It does fit beautifully on Artificer as the Tinkerer characters, right? To have like an extra hand to help you do all your things and pull things off high shelves and be screwing something in while you're lighting a Bunsen burner or whatever. Or, you know,
thematically, I don't know if that's going to come into play.
No, not often.
Yeah.
But in play, it does a ton of other things that are invaluable.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's Mage Hand.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about Mage Hand. Like, I think that ranks high on our list for every class that gets hit.
Yeah, I think it's going down as one of the best cantrips in the game. Like, yeah. I think it is, when we're looking at what cantrips I would want on every single character, there aren't many. Mage Hand is one of them, just because telekinesis is really, really good. Manipulating objects at range, pickpocketing from people at range, knocking things over, starting fires, having just remote access to dangerous objects, right? We don't know if that idol is cursed. Mage Hand will figure that out. Like, there's a dozen different amazing uses for this in every single scenario scene you're ever going to be in. It's great.
Yeah, the only reason I wouldn't take it is because, you know, you get 2 cantrips, is if I was taking the telekinetic feat that gives you this.
But you wouldn't want the extra range?
I do. It would be a consideration.
I like that
I'm
consideration.
Not saying I wouldn't take it. Yeah.
You can pick bonus cantrip, or you can pick a little bit better Mage Hand. That's a cool little consideration to make. I like it.
Too.
All right, so you've gotten your 3 down. Am I just going to blitz through all 5 of mine immediately?
Probably.
Right. Guidance is my number 2. It's really good.
Okay, guidance. Yep. This is a huge list.
It is, but like, and it's, for what it's worth, also, I think this list is solid. Like, we're not going to talk about a lot of the damage terrible options, but a lot of them are just fine. Lightning Lord is fine. Firebolt, Ray of Frost are fine. I wouldn't hate subbing out one of the damage options with any of those if it's thematically fitting to your character. If you want to play an artillerist that wants to have a Firebolt be reflavored as a flamethrower, go for it, or like a Fire Blaster or something. Absolutely in that wheelhouse. But Guidance is really good. Guidance is, if you don't take Mage Hand, you probably put Guidance on your sheet as your utility option. As just out of combat, everyone's getting buffs, they're getting help actions, they're getting D4s. If you want to feel like the supportive Artificer, Guidance is the number 1 pick I got. Honestly,
if nobody else has Guidance.
Yes, that's a good caveat. Multiple instances of Guidance, you don't really need the overkill. You can just have one person with it, and that'll be good enough. I will say, I've built Artificer before. I only take Mage Hand and Guidance. Like, I like both. I don't feel like I need damaging cantrips whenever I'm going Artillerist or going Battlesmith or going Armor. If I'm playing Alchemist, I'm playing a different class. So there's like, and by that I mean Thief Rogue is a better Alchemist in every way, shape, and form. In any case, take both of those cantrips, are both really good. Guidance is really useful. If you don't have a Cleric, you don't have a Druid, go for it. Get it. Guidance is great.
All right. Cannot argue with that. Made my list as well. Now, I got one more pick. This is an unusual pick for me, but I picked Mending. specifically for what is it, the battlesmith?
Oh
Which
yeah, that
one
sounds
gets
right.
the badger?
Yep. It's
Yeah,
not, no,
because
for what it's worth, it's a steel defender, not an
yes.
actual badger, but the art in the book is a badger, which is why we're both calling it a steel badger at the moment.
I was just maintaining continuity. You started
Oh, gotcha,
the
gotcha.
badger.
This is really important. Go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah, that's it's a machine pal that you heal it with the mending spell. That's you can't cast. Can you cast cure wounds on it, or like any other like regular healing, or is mending the only healing option for this?
That's a really important question that I don't know the answer to. So I think normally Cure Wounds designates what it doesn't affect. I think it's what Cure Wounds. You touch a creature, spells no effect on undead or constructs. So correct.
Right.
Healing
Okay.
will not affect your construct companion. So that's what mending is then there for.
All right, and yeah, it's
really
only
good
good
and very important
for that. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of mending outside of this particular instance, but for this one, it's almost necessary.
Yeah, a third of the reasonable subclasses that the option has really want mending. Because like it takes all the regular good text of mending. That's like, yeah, you're pretty good at repairing a damaged ship, or making the barricades hold up, or fixing broken arrows or whatever if you want to do that in your downtime for some reason. This also gives you a bunch of extra text where it says it heals if you cast mending on your steel defender, it gets 2d6 extra HP. It can revive it if it's died within the last hour, which means you can not need to like reconstruct it or anything. You can just bring it back with just spending a minute on mending. It's very good, specifically on that character, because it's more like a class feature than it is like a cantrip. So yeah, great point, great note. Mending is excellent here specifically.
All right, do you have any left?
Nope, that's all 5 of mine.
Oh, all right, well I guess we're done, except we get to pick a worst.
Yeah, I don't want to say the one I always say, but the rest of this list is honestly not that bad.
I know, I had trouble finding the worst, but what did you end up with?
Resistance.
Yeah, me too. All right.
Yeah. The dodge action exists, folks. You don't need to cast resistance. It is a D4 to a saving throw. It's really hard to set up. In the next edition, they're looking to make it a reaction, and it's going to be a completely different spell then. We'll talk about it maybe whenever that edition eventually releases. By edition, I mean update to 5. Yeah. But like, for how the 5th edition book was printed with resistance, it is so unusable. You have to pray things go well. It only can affect one creature. It requires concentration. So if you are going to a fight and you can't even like realistically buff somebody with this and expect it to work for a save in the fight in case you lose concentration, you only get 2 cantrip slots. No, it's hot trash. You have way better options.
Yeah, just like having to know what you need resistance to ahead of time is that's not happening.
You have to be like, what saving throw do I want a D4 against?
Right.
And if you don't know that question, it's very difficult to use this. If you're just sticking this on your barbarian and sending them down a corridor to get hit by traps, the D4 isn't a good bonus there. It's just a thing. You're just asking your barbarian to kill themselves as opposed to engage with the game. Like, no, you don't ever. There's no room for any character sheet to take resistance.
Like I said before, this is a pretty enormous list we've got to work with, and I'm kind of shocked that our lists are pretty close to identical. You want to run through yours again?
Sure. I'm at Mage Hand, Guidance, Green Flame Blade, Thorn Whip, and Create Bonfire. Honestly, Create Bonfire could be an asterisk for Acid Splash, Firebolt, Frostbite. Frostbite's great. That's one we didn't talk about, but it's like if you're playing specifically a support artificer, it goes fine there. Most of these damage spells will do just fine for you. Magic Stone's entirely reasonable. I think Magic Stone's probably better than like Thorn Whip in some instances if you're looking for raw damage. There's tons of goodies here that I'm fine taking, and only like Spare the Dying is a consideration for worst, as far as like you probably don't want to put this on your character sheet. And even that is not the end of the world if you want that level of certainty, right?
Yeah. I chose Thorn Whip, Guidance, Mending, Mage Hand, and Green Flame Blade. I think. So we were only off by 1?
Yeah. You put Mending, and I think I agree with your Mending more than my Create Bonfire.
I
completely forgot that it did work with Steel Defender that way, but that is really meaningful. So
yeah,
if you're that specific subclass, you want Mending.
Yeah. All right. Well, those were our picks for Artificer Cantrips. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Sam, thank you for joining me, and listeners and watchers, thank you for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time. Like and subscribe. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.